Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the new year of Mac and Chat. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am absolutely tickled to have this particular guest with us. She's one of the most celebrated singers that I know of. She truly has a voice from the heavens. She's an actress, she's a singer, she's a performer. She has worked with the best of the best, and that's probably because she is the best of the best. That is the one and only Miss Julie Budd.
Hello, how are you?
Hey everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for this first episode of the new year of Mac and Chats. I am your host, Peter Mac, and for those of you who don't know me, and there's absolutely no reason in the world why you should, I primarily work as a Judy Garland tribute artist, but there's a bevy of other ladies from the golden age of Hollywood and Broadway that I do pay homage to. I wrote for the Huffington Post for several years as a contributing writer. I've written a book called Cinema Salem and several plays. But this is something new for me, and I could not have asked for a better guest to start off the new year with a bang. She is one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard in my life. She truly does have a voice from the angels. And she's just the consummate performer, which is, I believe, how the New York Times described her, and you can't get pretty much better than that. So let's bring her out, my special guest for the night, Miss Julie Budd. Hello, Julie!
Hello, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Congratulations on your show.
Thank you. It's been fun. It's been fun. And I'm thrilled. I'm so happy that you agreed to be our first guest of the new year.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love you, and I love you guys.
Oh, we love you too. How was your holiday? How was the holiday season for you?
It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was fattening. I kept cooking. I kept baking. I kept Zooming and calling friends and cooking more. Calling more friends and cooking more.
A lot of carbohydrates, if you're anything like us.
I told you I made my eggplant parm tonight.
I know. I wish I was there. You know, being Italian, my God, yes. Please, next time.
You eggplant parm, not bad, huh?
So before we start kind of strolling down memory lane, how have you, it's been hard on everybody. COVID has been hard on everybody, but certainly as a performer, you know, I tried to, at the start, liken it to 9/11, except the problem is that with 9/11, and this is such an erroneous statement to make, I said, you know, the worst thing we worried about was being blown up, which is ridiculous. But we could still go and do our thing and do what we do as performers, which is to try to take people's minds off their troubles for a while. And we haven't really been able to do that. So how have you dealt? Because I know as a performer, I feel like just a little piece of me has died inside, not having that human connection these last 10 months or so.
There are so many feelings that I have about this. First of all, I want to say before anything is that I'm totally grateful that I can have a home, roof over my head. I could make it. There are people standing on food. There are people that can't get medical attention. There are people that are afraid to be evicted, get out of home. I think it's very hard on the landlords and the property, but I think that Cuomo did the right thing by keeping people in their homes and not allowing anybody to get evicted. How do I feel? I feel a million. I'm grateful that we're not. Grateful. I'm grateful that we have elections. We speak to one another. We connect. Imagine what life would have been like had we not had anything at all. How do I feel about not working? Interestingly enough, in the beginning, it didn't affect me. I didn't know how long it would go on. And I had been working so much that in a way the time was almost good for me in a funny way.
Yeah.
But when it goes on too long, you become disconnected. You become, not from the people, but from the way you're used to living.
Sure.
And you sort of feel like you're half of yourself. I think that you were saying too, that in a way you start feeling like a little bit of half of yourself.
Yeah.
It's funny, before we got on camera, you and I were talking about how you can train and you can train and you can work at home, but there's nothing like what it's really like to actually be in the rigors of doing the show. You know, being in it changes your instrument altogether.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And look, we know this is going to end. We all know it's going to end. We just don't know how long we have in front of us until it can. I would think probably a year. Hopefully we're out of this in a year. But it's by the time we're out of this in a year, it's almost 2 years we've been in it.
Yeah.
A year and a half at least.
It's true.
So how do I feel about it? I feel very foreign. I feel very, very grateful. I feel very frightened. I don't go out a lot. I just, first of all, there's nowhere to go. And so I stay within, I go to parks that I know and I see friends and we sit way, way, way far apart from one another. And I try very, very hard to stay connected, to be purposeful. And I try to stay connected to people this way on the phone. What else can you do?
Yeah.
But
we have no other choice.
Gratitude. This whole thing has given me a fantastic sense of gratitude.
It's you know, again, there's just that thing that you, when it did first start, I thought, oh, all right, we'll be off for a couple of weeks and it won't be a big deal. But it's true, the longer you go, you realize, and I don't know if it's the same for people that are in film, because it's such a different medium versus theater folk or doing concerts where you really are dependent on yeah.
But remember, Peter, even folks that are recording and doing TV and film,
yeah,
they're connecting their way, and they can't do that right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? They can't plan their next season. How do you plan your next season?
Yeah.
Every day the union is allowing this or disallowing that. You're coming from the experience of the actual doing of the feedback from a live audience, from having a full house and all of that. But they can't. They're stuck too.
Yeah.
They're stuck too. Everybody is sort of on pause right now. The interesting thing that I think that has come out of this is how families have come together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before everybody was running and running and running and running, and it was an effort for families to make time to be together.
Yeah.
Where now, it's the way everybody is. It's like the old days.
before we had all of this internet, and my God, I remember when we got call waiting in our house. That was a big deal.
I still can't work my call waiting. I still can't work my call. I am a total idiot. I was getting a cold sweat when DJ said to me, he gave me all these links and he says, now do it this way, or you could do it that way. And I called like a half hour early because I thought to myself, he's going to think I was kidnapped. I'm trying to, you know, and which one do I click? And am I going to blow up the machine? You know, and I'm terrible. I'm really
me too. I'm good with eBay and I'm good with Amazon and shopping. I'm a whiz. I love to shop.
What I say? If you don't know what to do, call the 7-year-old.
It's true.
Little kids, you just call a little kid in.
They have iPhones.
Yeah, my nieces and my nephews. I was visiting them, and I don't know. I can't remember. The kids were trying to tell me to go somewhere on some app. Don't ask me. And I looked like I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. And they go, "Oh, come on, Auntie," and they take the phone. 2 seconds. Little pishers know what they're doing.
It's true. It's true. They're one step ahead of us. They are
a lot ahead of us.
A lot ahead of us. Much more sophisticated. But you know what? I wouldn't trade in my childhood. I say to my Jojo, I call my brother Jojo. We came in at the tail end, I think, where everything was still a lot simpler. And you know what? I take that. I'll take that.
No, they don't know what we knew. That's the thing, you know.
Yeah.
Even when I started in the business, I used to take the subway at 12 years old from Brooklyn, but not like the easy area to get into New York, Brooklyn. I was out in Canarsie, Neil Basin, you know, really far. And
my uncle Carmine lived in Canarsie.
What was that?
My uncle Carmine lived in Canarsie. That's so funny.
Yeah, so you know, it's like an hour and 45 minutes. You have to walk up to the bus stop, wait for the buses, take the bus down, go into the train station, wait, get into the train. It's an hour. Get out of the train, change to go to West Side, right? Get out and then walk wherever you have to. It was like almost 2 hours to get to Manhattan. And I did it all by myself. I was 12 years old. I wouldn't let my kids do that today.
Different world.
I wouldn't let them take the garbage out.
It's true. It's a very different world.
Yeah, it really is. We had a lot more freedom, I think.
Yes, totally. Absolutely. I agree with you.
How did freedom help you as an artist? Did it help you?
I think so, because I also, when did I start auditioning? I started taking voice lessons when I was 14, and that was over at what they call the Actors Building. I always forget that's on 9th Avenue.
Is the clock? It's okay.
What was that?
My clock. It doesn't bother you?
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Oh, okay. So you were saying, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. No. I was about 14, and yeah, at a certain point I was getting on the Long Island Railroad, and you know, once Mom, she's like, are you sure you can? Yeah, I'll go in by myself, and I got to explore the city, and it was amazing. It was,
Today, if you had a 14-year-old, would you let him do that?
No.
Right?
No. I'd be...
You'd have to go with his brother. You'd have to go with his brother.
Yeah. It's just changed so much. Now, as I want to know, when did you get bitten by the bug? Do you remember what the defining moment was for you in terms of performance when you really thought, gee, I like this?
Kind of. I was really, really, really young. I have a memory of
That wasn't on purpose. That was a mistake. My fault.
But it worked. It worked.
My memory. I have a memory of being in my living room in Brooklyn, and my grandma was there, and I used to sing TV commercials to her.
That's great.
And my grandmother, everything I did, she thought was brilliant.
That was like my grandma.
Yeah. It was sweet. It was comforting. I loved it. And but she really convinced me that it's not because she loves me and I'm her bubbler, that I was really good.
Yeah.
I was really, really young, Peter. I bet you I was 6.
It's great.
I was 6. And I remember after that always singing TV commercials. As I got older, I did them for a living. But when I was 6,
It served you well.
it's funny you say that, but there's truth in what you're saying, that when you encourage children, a lot can happen.
Yeah.
I was always encouraged. I have to say, I didn't come from one of those families that said, "No, you can't." I had, well, look, your mom, God bless her.
Yeah.
She was very a giver. And like my mother and my father and my grandmother, it was, yes, you can. Yes, you can. And children, that's an important message that stays in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. My grandpa actually, everybody was supportive, but grandpa in particular, he would always say to my mom, "You have to let him do this. He's good. Let him, this is what he should be doing." Because mom would get worried about, just the life of what a performer goes through, that part of it. But he would say, "Camille, you have to let him do it. This is what he's supposed to be doing." So, yes, I had that same kind of support from everybody. And my brother, I refer to as Mama Rose, because he really, he pushed me too.
He's got the heart of an angel. Everybody in your family, I swear. You're like
I lucked out.
Honey, you're an angel too, let me tell you.
Thank
the
you.
whole family. But that whole thing of, yes, you can, is so important for a kid to hear. Yes, you can. Sometimes you don't think it at the time because it's such a small thing. You know what I found about life? And when things really change, you always think that when something's going to change, it's going to be this big thing that makes it change. This big thing. You're always waiting for this big thing to happen. And really what it is these little incremental things, these little steps, little things in life that are the big catalyst for change. Those are the things that really help you change. Those little things that happen along the way.
It's true. It's very true.
And that's kind of the way my life and my career has been.
What was your first professional job? You know, in terms of singing, what was the first step on the ladder in terms of
the career?
The career. Yes.
Real career. Doing the Merv Griffin Show.
So cool that you got that's so great.
I mean, you're an artist, and you started young too. I was 12, you were 14. I had never been trained. I never did anything before. I never had a voice lesson. I never had an acting class. I never had a musical director go over material with me. I never had anything. I had just met Herb. I met Herb at Tamarack. And for those of you who don't know who Herb was my arranger and conductor since I'm 12 years old. And
right.
He was a very, very successful orchestrator and record producer. Sold 40 million records, And he discovered me at Tamarack in the Catskill Mountains at a talent show. And that's all I knew. I had met Herb that summer. And that winter, he decided to work with me, record me. And right after he recorded, he was recording Merv Griffin. And he brought me back to the session. And on the break, he had me. And like 2-3 days later, I was on TV. I mean, imagine, I'm living in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I'm going to school. I'm in the 6th grade going into the 7th grade. I'm living at home with my family and my sisters and my grandparents and cousins, uncles, and aunts are coming on the weekend. And we never did anything musically. And 2-3 days later, I'm on Merv Griffin. And the thing about television in those days was we didn't have all the channels we had.
Exactly.
you know, so everybody was watching the same thing. If you were watching TV, everybody in the world was watching the same thing.
Yeah.
And the notoriety was immediate. I mean, I was immediately a noted musician overnight. It was wild. And I was 12 years old. And my family was kind of like yours, like they were worried about how the industry would change me. How would I be able to make a normal life? And the same concerns that, God bless your mother, that she had, my parents had too.
Yeah.
And lucky for me, I was always in the hands of good people. I think it really gets down to being good people and just being a good kid and having a good background and good family. And
sure.
Innately, we knew what to do and what not to do. We were hardworking kids and we weren't fooling around.
Yeah.
But you asked, like, what was the thing? That was the first thing. But I was lucky because it was a thing that really was a big thing. But I didn't know it was a big thing at the time. You know.
Was he because I love watching. I mean, now I watch repeats because people put them up on YouTube, and it's wonderful. So many of his shows. Was he as lovely and wonderful as he seems to be, Merv Griffin? He just seemed like a really generous man?
He was a no-nonsense man. He had a lot riding on that show.
Yeah.
He was Merv was a businessman. A lot of people don't know this about him. He owned hotels, he owned radio stations, and he was doing this even way before he got mega famous. And I remember when I met him, he was a small syndicated station underwritten by Westinghouse. And he was filming the shows out of a theater here in New York called the Little Theater. It was, I think it's still there. It's called the Little Theater. And then as he became a little bit more famous, he went into the Court Theater, which is still there, and could have been renamed. Is the Court Theater still the Court Theater, or is it renamed? I don't know.
Still the Court? Yeah.
It's still the Court? Because, they keep renaming them. And,
yes.
And the thing is, he started to grow, like I said before, it's never a really big thing. It's the increments, And he grew slowly and slowly. But he was always a serious business. He owned a farm in New Jersey. He started to accumulate small radio stations around the East Coast, branched out to the country. He understood where television was going.
Yeah.
He wanted control of his own projects. I mean, if you were on the wrong side of Merv, he could be tough.
Sure.
But if he recognized you and saw where your heart was with your work, Merv was always attracted to people who were attracted to the passion. I think that's the best way.
Now, who were your mentors? Once you started, the passion for singing was there. Obviously for me, Judy is obviously the one that clicked with me, and that's how I started singing in my basement, was singing along with Judy Garland albums. But also because Mom had such great taste in music. I mean, we were allowed to listen to what was on the radio, but on the weekend we listened to Judy and Frank and Dean and Sammy and Bobby Darin, and so that I clung more to that than I did. I said I was born way too late. So those were the people that I said, yeah, that's what you want to do. Those people can sing, and they understand what lyrics are about. I think.
And you also the difference because you were listening to the other stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you had to give me the choice, I would take the quote unquote old fashioned music, which is ridiculous, but
you like dramatic theater pieces.
Yeah. So who was it for you? Was there any one person, or was it in terms of?
You said who was my mentor. My mentor was her.
Okay.
My mentor was her. Her really taught me how to work. I had great instinct, but he taught me how to work. The first real mentor I had was my mother. My mother was a lot of people don't know that. My mother was an extraordinary vocalist, but my mother was very shy, very sensitive. Mother, I don't think could have survived this business very well. It would have destroyed her, actually. And maybe that's why she was back. But as a child, my mother sang on the radio. And got older, I think she realized that the rigors of this industry were not for her. And she had a very beautiful life with my father. So she made the right choice. But who would know that she would give birth to a child that was just like her with the chutzpah of my father.
A good combo.
And the chutzpah of my father. And that's exactly what it was. And they were my first two mentors. And then I met Herb. And then Herb was, Herbie was the one who taught me how to work. And then I met a wonderful teacher. Her name was Lydia Thomas. And Lydia's like a grandmother to me, or an aunt to me, a mother to me. I was with Lydia forever, and her husband. And between the two of them, they protected this.
Yeah.
And they really didn't want to take me on as a student because I was very young. And most people don't want to touch 16, 17 years old because most boys are so transitional prior to that. But they did. They took me on. And so they became my first mentors. And then I started working with people because I got signed to William Morris right after the Merv Griffin Show. Herbie was able to make a deal with William Morris. And what was William Morris going to do with a 12-year-old who couldn't work nightclubs?
Right.
So what they did was they paired me with the greatest legends in show business, which was a perfect fit. But remember, I haven't done anything before, so I was constantly being drilled and rehearsed by Herbie how to perform, how to work. And a lot was the people learn, and a lot was on my feet. I really learned on my feet how to work. And I was lucky that I had good instincts. It taught me a lot. I think you want to learn how to perform, you have to perform.
Well, I was just going to ask you that because almost all of the greats will say that, yes, you train, you take classes, but
that's invaluable.
Yes, but to get on a stage in front of an audience, because you'll learn what you did right and you will learn what you did wrong.
And you get sea legs.
Yeah.
And you get sea legs, and you get a certain confidence in knowing the turf.
Yeah.
You always nervous before you go to work. And if you're not a little nervous, and if you're not a little witty when you write something, you're probably going to bump.
It's
right.
Right.
But,
no performer should be a safe performer.
Exactly. But there is a part of you that still has confidence in going out because you know how to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're living in this dual environment. Part of you is very confident in the fact that you know how to use yourself. You know how to get out there. On the other hand, you're very, very nervous because you never know if whatever you wrote or put together is horrible or brilliant. You just don't know, and you won't know. Maybe you'll never know.
It's true.
But you live in this world of duality, and that's the truth.
And you do. It's interesting. The nights that, and I think this plagues people no matter how long you've been doing it. You get those nights where you feel they're not giving it back to you, and you try to work harder, and which you really shouldn't. I mean, it's to you
Just
don't
stay in the moment. Stay in the moment.
Like right. Don't shove it down their throats.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, at the end of the night, if you're lucky, you'll get it. They'll stand up and applaud you, and you go,
And then
"Oh,
they
what?"
come up to you after the show and they tell you how brilliant you were. And you said to yourself, but you see, that's how you learn on your feet. You learn, I will not do that tomorrow night. I will not push.
Yeah,
I will just stay true to the moment. I'll stay in my work. I will be grateful for being here. I will invest this fully with my whole heart, and I will trust that. That will be enough.
yeah. Now
But you don't know that until you're in those problems.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My grandma's favorite singer, without a doubt. I'll never forget the night she went to see him and Liza and Sammy at Nassau Coliseum, which is no longer with us. That broke my heart. Was Old Blue Eyes, Mr. Sinatra. And you started working with him in Vegas when you were 16. Do I have that right?
In fact, I was a little younger. We worked in April. My birthday's in, so I wasn't quite 16.
Okay.
And I made him laugh because he came backstage one night when the crew was on dinner break and I was sitting doing my homework. He said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing my homework." And he just looked. And I looked up at him and I said, "Is this Sinatra? I'm probably the only person you ever worked with that said I'm doing my homework." We got along great. He was a sweet man.
So, and now he would sit you in the wings while he was performing.
Set me up. He set me up with the little cocktail table. Well, I would do. Well, Pat Henry went. He did 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I went on, and I thought I was going to do 25 minutes. As it turned out, he wanted me to do 40, which was very generous. Very. And I went and did my show. And then after my show, he did in the wing. And there was a long open door before it went on. And he leans over to me. "Change. You'll come back. Have a little table for you. Put a little food on the table. The show acts. In my room, there's a setup of food. I can't eat all this food." Because you go and you have a little something to eat. And you watch the show. And then he set up the props, his props, on my table. Butter, whatever.
Right.
So I'd hand him his props, and he'd come off on back. He took 2-3 bows during a long shot. And he'd say, it'd be really cute thing. "How am I doing?" "What, are you kidding? You better get out there. You're going to put this place apart. You're going to bring with me. Oh, get out there. They're going to take this place apart." But he was great for me. And we had a very nice, warm time. It was fun because I always talk about this. I show that on my flight back from New York to Vegas, there were agents and managers, and I'm on the flight, and there are all people coming up to me saying, "Don't you talk to Mr. Sinatra. If you ever need anything, you come to us. Don't you even breathe in this direction. Walk in this direction." I said, "Get it? Word, I won't do a thing. I was a good kid. I knew how to do it." Fine. I get there, I go to sleep. I get ready for the next day's rehearsal. We're all very excited. Some of the arrangements I've never heard before, only at the piano. The ink was still wet on the lead sheets.
That's wild.
We had 40, 45 piece orchestra. I get on the stage, Band-Aid, and I'm rehearsing. Coming to the end of my rehearsal, and someone comes up to me and said, "Mr. Sinatra's on his way." And I was surprised he was coming to rehearsal. I said, "Okay." So we hurry up and we finish. And just as I'm coming to the end, just before my bow, I turn and I see some in the wings. I can't see because my eyes, and it's dark in the wings as I look. But I see them, so I wave back. and then they blow me a kiss. I blow them a kiss. I figured because it's friendly. And I finish and I start walking off. And as my eye starts to adjust the light, I realize Sinatra. And he's got his arms. And the first thing he says, whatever you need, you come to me. So much for all those people that say, don't breathe around him, don't talk about him, don't do this, don't just say good morning, walk away. The first thing he said was, whatever you need, you. And he was very hands-on, a lot more than people thought he was. He had all these people around him, but he was a good businessman and everything went through him first. And if he liked me, he liked me. He knew. And if he didn't, get out. But fortunately for me, he liked me. But I joke when I say get out of it. You know, the thing with him is he liked people who were the same thing as Merv. Dedicated.
Yeah.
Dedicated. And if he said for 1 minute that you weren't, he lost it for you.
Yeah.
And he saw that I was serious about being there. It meant a lot to me to be there. And it meant a lot to get approval.
Yeah.
And he gave it to me.
It's amazing.
He gave it to me. No, he was great.
Did he ever give you any advice, anything that you ever took? Did he ever pull you aside and say, now listen, you know, you're going to be in this, but did you ever have a moment like that with him in terms of something that stuck with you that he might have said? Or
I had a lot of feelings about things that he said to me. And he said a lot of very personal things about my life and work and how he saw it.
Yeah.
And he was protective about saying certain things and seeing that he offered them so really listen. And he said a lot of them. And he was a true person.
Yeah.
He was not a person that just said things, say things like people do. He was a very deep person. He was not, what's the word for it? He wasn't show busy. And I don't think people expected that. I think people expected him to be show busy.
Yeah, it's kind of what you saw was what you got.
He spoke from the heart.
Yeah.
If he really wanted to help you, he really, really offered it from the heart.
Yeah.
He could be a good friend.
And very generous too.
Because yes, he was generous. But I was surprised because I was so young. And he was so much older. He was 40 years older than me.
Yeah.
I never thought there could be a connection like that.
Yeah. Well, and as you say, he was protective, and having two daughters, I'm sure there was that kind of paternal thing going on there as well. Seeing...
He saw something, he started working. He told me he started working when he was about 15.
Right.
His mother actually got his first job. I think he told me it was a local orchestra in New Jersey. And it was a big deal for him to be singing with them. They were professionals. And he said he understood the feeling of when you have to live up to something. But it's all about desire and talent at this point.
Yeah.
Because you have no training at that point. Your training is the doing. It's an odd position for a kid to be in.
Sure. I was watching an interview with Keely Smith, who another one that I'm in love with. I mean, the lady's voice never changed. It pretty much stayed the same, and she adored Mrs. Sinatra. She said, and I can say this, I think it's okay. She said, his mother had bigger balls than any man. But she said that's why everybody loved.
I heard that. I heard it. I know. But you know, Keely was a very honest gal.
Yeah.
And by the way, that kind of honesty shows up in your work. She was
True.
great up there. She was great. Wasn't she great up there?
Yeah. It's true. It's true. Yeah. With again, in the going back and looking at Frank and Dean and Sammy and Judy and Peggy Lee, and there wasn't anything false. And I mean, I think that's the big thing about this business is you can't lie when you're on stage. You certainly can't lie when you sing.
Tony Bennett's like that. When he approaches his music, it's so organic.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we know he has all the skill. We know he has all those years behind him. Of course. But at the core of it, there's this organic, beautiful moment that he creates. He's extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah. And still going strong. God bless him.
You know, that's never going to be me.
Yeah. Is that no?
At 96, I'm in Boca with my grandkids and nephews, having an egg on the beach.
You'll still be singing. I don't buy it. You'll still be singing. Come on. Because everybody wants to hear you sing.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, I wondered in terms of theater, because I did notice you played North Shore Music Theater. You did They're Playing Our Song, which is one of my husband's favorite shows. And what a great score.
Yeah.
And you became...
Marv really surprised the world with that. I think it was their first shot at theater, wasn't it?
Was it at North Shore, you mean?
Big. No, I'm talking about their contribution to the score. That it was their first big theater project.
Oh.
Marvin had chorus line before that.
Right. Well, because you, and then you became very close with Marvin Hamlisch.
But like
That was
branching
his
out.
breakout. Totally agree. Yep.
Yeah. It's because it's a wonderful score. I think it's so underrated.
Which one came first? Was it chorus line or the song? Was it chorus line first?
Chorus line.
I think it's chorus line. Then
So chorus line was his first big thing, but I think he was excited about playing the song because he wanted to follow up chorus line with another hit. You know, there's always that worry that you're going to have something that's so big, and are you ever going to be able to have another hit again?
Yeah.
And when he had, they put the song, and then he had The Way We Were in film. I mean, he was soaring through the roof.
Yeah. Such a brilliant. There's a song of his that was he wrote for the Sweet Smell of Success on Broadway, and they cut it. And I'm so glad it's starting to get the attention that it deserves. I sang it around the time that my mom passed away. It's called That's How I Say Goodbye. It's got to be one of the most beautiful songs ever. I just talking about it, I get goosebumps.
Marvin had this ability to go inside. And you know what was funny about Marvin? Marvin could be very inside. And then you would never know that this would just merge. You know, it was like an explosion.
Yeah.
I toured with Marvin for about 7 years.
Oh, wow.
What was it like? What was he like? Was he...
Marvin was like everything and all in the same hour. Perfect way to describe Marvin. You know, he was a lot. He was brilliant. He was exasperating. He was funny. He was a good friend.
Yeah.
Then he won't talk to you for 2 days. You know, I mean, he was everything.
The whole gamut.
He was everything. But you loved him. He was, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him.
Yeah.
He was extraordinary. There's nobody that I know that will ever be like Marvin.
Yeah.
And we met in the 70s. I was doing a film for Disney. A contract with Disney.
The Devil and Max Devlin, correct?
Right. I had a lead role in that.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful opportunity for me. But I also was doing a soundtrack as well. So I did a lot there. I loved it there. I loved working for them. I think they're the great company in the world.
Well, what I was going to say, what a great to get to do a Disney movie. That must have been a huge deal for you.
It was enormous. I was the most blessed person on the planet. I loved being there. And I made friends at that company. I'm still friends with them today.
It's great.
And that's when I first worked with Marvin. And he was doing music for the film. And then we recorded a sound film. And then years later, we got together, symphony orchestras together.
Yeah.
And we toured the country. And he became principal pop conductor for like 8 orchestras, which is unbelievable. Nobody does that.
Yeah.
But I told you, Marvin, just stick around. And then I became very friendly with his wife, Terry. And prior to her death, I was very friendly with his sister, Terry. I knew his mom, Lillian. And I knew everybody there. And it was a big loss to lose Marvin.
Yeah.
Especially, I don't know, the universe just seems different without him.
Yeah. And such an important part of the whole Broadway legacy.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not to say we're not getting wonderful composers now, but when you think Marvin Hamlisch, Jerry Herman, Kander and Ebb, obviously Stephen Sondheim, I mean, it's, my God, you know.
They were Gershwins.
The Gershwin, yes.
That's how I look at it, you know. My mother and father grew up with Gershwin. You know, we grew up with Marvin Hamlisch and Stephen Sondheim. These were our Gershwins, and it's hard, you know, to think, you know, are we ever going to be without these people? They've always been such a big part of our lives. But the interesting part about Marvin, as opposed to these other theater composers, Marvin had hit records. He was in the pop world. Marvin had hit movie themes. I'll tell you another thing about Marvin. Marvin could score. Marvin could conduct. Marvin could get up and do the show himself and sing and be an entertainer on his own. These people didn't have Marvin's skills.
Yeah.
Marvin, you know, as much as I love Stephen Sondheim, he's not going to score a movie. And he's not going to produce a pop record. And he's not going to get up there and go on tour and do an evening of all by himself. And do you know what I'm saying? Like Marvin had skills that none of these people have. And I think that's why Marvin's career was as extraordinary as it was, because if it wasn't happening in one area, it could happen in the other area.
In the other. Because
Marvin had, and you know, I learned that, I'm going to be a name dropper. I learned that from Bob Hope, because I used to tour with him when I was a little girl. And I remember he said to me, Julie, get in all the different areas, because when it's not happening in one area, you could make it happen in the other. He says, that's been the secret of my career. He said, when I couldn't do stage anymore, when I couldn't get a good film role, I could go to television.
Right.
He said, I could go to touring. Because he had all those skills. It's all about honing those skills.
Yeah.
And then you have to hope that your instrument is going to be appealing in those genres.
In that, exactly.
Those mediums.
Exactly. Right. I was curious about doing Devlin, Max Devlin, going from concerts to theater and then to film, what was that like for you? Did you transition easy in terms of, because I know, certain performers can't wait to get a movie, and then they do, and then they're like, oh my God, you just sit around and wait all day. So,
And you have to work smaller.
exactly.
It's another physicality. But I was okay with that because I started on TV. The first 10 years of my life in show business were basically spent on TV because there were so many places I couldn't work because I was a minor.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate to get my start in TV, which was a great boost now that I look back, because by the time I was ready to go out and tour, the country knew who I was.
Yeah.
Because I had been raised on TV. So I was really, really, I couldn't have been I was the luckiest kid in Brooklyn,
So,
I was very, very lucky that it was structured that way. Believe me, we didn't intend it. It happened. It was one of these things that it happened that way. But yeah, I think that you have to understand the difference between not only the habits, like you said, you're sitting around all day, but you have to understand the technique of working in the different mediums, because they really are different. I mean, yeah, you're always using yourself. Honestly, truly, you are access and working truthfully, and yes, but in a theater, you naturally, because the size and the scale of you're bigger, you're more exaggerated almost.
and in film, you wind up being 40 feet tall because.
But in film, a raise of the eyebrow is a huge move.
Yeah.
It's a much more. It's smaller. It's more internal. When you think it, you don't project it as much as you would in the theater. It's a thought. Not that it's not in the theater. Please, it would be bad acting if it wasn't that way.
Exactly.
But it is larger on a stage than it is when the camera's right here.
Yeah. So the truth, I mean, again, it's all about telling the truth, or certainly good acting and good singing, and which Judy always said, good singing is a form of good acting. Don't try to separate the two. She felt that it was
That's absolutely right. There is no difference.
Yeah.
There is no difference.
And again, paying attention to the lyrics, and there's a reason why Mr. Gershwin put a comma in,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
she was a very bright and thoughtful woman. When you read some of the things and you hear and you listen, I'm sure you did because you did your research. But when you see those interviews, you're very, very surprised, when you get the real good people that knew how to talk to her and got her on the day that she was really concentrating and able to relax and give.
Yeah.
She was a very bright, sensitive, and yet tough at the same time. She was like a little warrior,
Very much so. I was going to ask about Bob. I wanted to ask you about Bob Hope because you brought him up. Another one that I mean, we in our house we grew up watching his movies, again because of Mom and Aunt Carol. They made sure. And I just anything special or standout. That's great advice in terms of him saying to you, make sure that you're well versed in all of this. So
yeah, he said it to me. He said, if you want to be in show business and you want to be here for the long haul, Julie, he said, there are going to be a lot of areas that you're going to have to concentrate on because, industries change. And if you want to survive, you have to change with them, and he told me, listen, he was He was working when there was no television.
Right.
You know, he was a vaudevillian. He had to learn how to dance. Well, he wouldn't even get those shows. He was a great dancer. There's a great, I'm sure you've seen it, because there's a great piece with him and Cagney dancing on top of a long table. Did you ever see that?
I have never seen that. Now I have something to look. Well, Cagney.
Oh, please. Later on tonight when you go home, you make a cup of tea and you're laying there, go on YouTube and just say James Cagney and Bob Hope. And you will know everything that I'm telling you now.
Yeah.
Because you're going to see two people who have great skill, but they're vaudevillians.
Yeah.
And they had when they were 5 years old, they were learning how to tap. You know, Sammy Davis said he never went to school. He said, I was on stage at 2 years old.
Right.
He said, I was dancing at 2 years old. He said, this is all I've ever done. This is the only job I ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything Sammy knew, and he was a very bright man, it was self-taught.
Yeah.
He loved to read. He loved to learn. He never went to school. He was out on the road at 4. They were extraordinary lives. And they learn a lot. They learn a lot about people. They learn about how to survive industries. I mean, when you think about Bob Hope, you talk about Bob Hope.
Yeah.
He was a vaudeville. He was then on radio and moved into film. There was no TV. Then he moved. He was considered such a daring pioneer that he went into television the way he did. And when he and Danny Thomas. Yeah, I mean, I was very close to Danny Thomas. I worked with Danny Thomas a lot.
Make room for Daddy.
Was the nicest. That man, you can't ever have a better friend than Danny Thomas. Danny Thomas was one of the finest human beings I've ever met. I mean, I loved Bob and I loved Merv and I loved Frank, and they were ambitious, brilliant people. But Danny was a whole other level of consciousness. Danny was, look at St. Jude, what he did for people.
I was going to say,
that man, you could cry. The day he died, I just sat on my bed and I just cried.
Aww.
I felt the world. Yeah, I did. And I still feel it today. I think the world lost a diamond. He was a good man.
Yeah.
He was a very, very good man. Yeah, he really was.
He doesn't really get the credit that he should. It's funny, you know, you mentioned the names Frank and Bob, but I don't think Danny Thomas gets the credit that he deserves as a performer.
Think about it. Think about some of the brilliant people over the years that we have seen. Just think about it for a minute. So many of them don't.
Yeah.
There's just a select few that sort of got into that club, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you don't know why, because these people were unbelievably extraordinary.
Yeah.
You know? But you know what? We're lucky to work, you know.
Oh, that's the name of the game.
We're lucky to have had careers. We're lucky that there was an audience out there for us.
Yeah.
We're lucky that we have this forum right now, and that, you know, people are interested in hearing what we have to say, hopefully. I mean, we're just lucky. You know, it's like what you asked me about COVID earlier. The biggest thing I've learned from COVID is gratitude. You know?
Absolutely.
Hey, Julie. It's DJ.
Hey, how are you?
My other half.
I'm doing great.
He's a doll.
Oh, thank you. This is such a giant honor for me because I know we're friends, but I am such a huge fan. And right now, by the way, a few moments ago, we passed, we're a little over 7,500 people watching us right now across all the different...
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, my hair looks okay.
Nope, you look amazing. You know, you mentioned that you got to 10 years straight of live television. And you, because of that, you actually got to debut some of the most famous songs on TV. You know, the one that popped into my head was New York, New York. I remember that performance. But we have, we call them our godfathers, Carl and Ralph. They're a couple. They split their time between New York City. They live right near Lincoln Center. He's an administrator on the board of NYU Langone Hospital and Vermont. And they reminded me about a performance that you debuted on Toast of the Town. You sang Skylark, and they wanted to know what you remember about that performance.
Every performance for me, that was a long time ago. Every performance for me was so important. I remember thinking, I would stay up all night worrying about shows, just making sure everything was right, every detail, every little thing. You know, it was such an investment in my life. Every time I did a show, every time I did anything. I remember when I did Skylark, it was a very important piece to me. It was a new piece at the time for me. And it was very exposing vocally. And I remember I wanted it just to be so pure. And I wanted it to be so right. And I wanted to be connected. I hope that they felt that way when I did it. But it's interesting to hear them remembering that. So that makes me feel good. You know, that after all that time, that's the piece that they remember.
And Carl said to me in his email, he said, watching her, we saw this little girl come out on stage, and then they were transported, and they forgot that you were this young person, that you had such maturity. And you were a teenager, right, when you did it?
I was about 14, could I have been?
Wow.
15.
Oh, wow. I now have to go watch it.
Maybe I was. The thing, maybe I was older. I can't remember. You know, it's kind of a blur because I was working so much. You know, you have to remember I was like a little work machine. I was just always working. And it was just a way of life with me. You know, it's so funny. You know, Peter and I were talking about how our parents were worried about our being in show business because they were worried about the influences. And quite frankly, it was the very thing that kept me on the straight and narrow because I was always working. I was always, you know, in rehearsals. I was always training. But that's because the desire really came from me. Nobody pushed me to do this.
Yeah.
No, you know, my mother wasn't combing my hair backstage. Matter of fact, my mother couldn't stand those women. And when I would go on auditions or when I would go to do shows, she would send my sister Jilly with me because my mother couldn't stand to be around those women.
Oh.
And the whole thing made her nervous. So I went everywhere with my sister Jill. And the whole thing was kind of a blur of work at that time for me. But I did do a lot of vocal debuts on television at that time. I also had the title song to the follow-up to Born Free was Living Free.
Right, of
That's
course.
right.
Did that, and I debuted New York, New York.
Exactly, I remember that.
Carson show. And I was really surprised, quite frankly, that they asked me to do it because I knew that Liza had the movie coming out and I knew that she had a recording of it and Mr. Sinatra had expressed interest that he wanted to cover it. And I don't know if he did it at that time yet or if it was coming later or whatever, but I was the first one that did it. And that was because
he hadn't covered it yet. That's what's so...
Johnny asked me to do it. I didn't even know the song. I didn't know. Swear to God, I had heard it, but I didn't know it. There's a difference, you know? And I remember Herbie calling me and saying, you know what? He said, Johnny Carson asked you to do New York, New York. And if he asked you to do it, you got to learn that sucker. I said, okay. And remember Colony Records?
Oh my God, yes.
Oh my God.
Miss it.
I remember running down to Colony to get sheet music and a recording. And what was crazy about it was there was no sheet music for New York, New York. It was in a book. So you had to buy the whole book to get this one song, right? And the book was like $90 million, and you had to go buy it. I remember buying the soundtrack to the movie. And it was a very different idea of what I thought me and Herbie were going to do.
Okay.
You know, you have to kind of find your own way, but yet you stay true to the form as well. You know, you kind of walk that line. And all of a sudden, 3 days later, I had like 3 days to learn this. I found myself on a plane going out to LA.
Wow.
And doing New York, New York. And there I was.
And it's incredible. I posted that the other night. It's incredible.
I wonder if my memory serves me. 1 second. I know I only had 3 days to learn it. But I wonder if Johnny was still here in New York at the time when I did it. Was it 77? If it was 77, he was out in LA.
He was in LA. Yeah, he was in LA.
And I did fly to LA. Because for a long time, I did his show in New York.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. But I remembered I only had like 3 days to learn this.
That's, as Johnny would say, that is wild.
He was really great to me. I mean, anytime I wanted to do something or push something or promote something, he let me do the show.
Well, you worked with Johnny and Joan Rivers as well, correct?
I didn't hear what you just said.
Did you work with Johnny as well as Joan Rivers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We have a question from Jill Aronstein, who Jill used to work for me, and we became very, very close friends. Anytime she's in New York, she lives in Florida now. She never misses our shows. But she is such a huge fan of yours. She has all of your albums. Her question is...
Thank you, Jill.
She wants us to ask, when you and Herb are planning a concert or an album, how do you decide what composers' music you're going to do? Is it thematic? Is it the composers themselves that you cherish? How do you guys make the decision?
Great question.
Well, the first thing you do is you think about the direction of the album that you're going to do, because that's going to help you hone in on where you're going to look for the music. So you say, what direction what am I trying to say on this CD, and what direction am I traveling in? Once you've thought about the direction, you're going to know where to go for the music. It's going to help direct you to that place, you know. Now, sometimes, and I'll tell you some interesting things happen. Sometimes Herbie and I are sitting around and we're talking about the next project, the next recording project, whatever. And I'll say, you know, Herbie, I just love blah, blah, blah. And I love blah, blah, blah. And he goes, yeah. And we find we're all over the place with this music. And then we look at each other and we say, maybe that's the theme. You know, like sometimes things come out of that. So, sometimes they just come out of kicking around enough ideas that the real idea starts to happen. But more often than not, if you're really searching for a musical direction, it comes from the idea that you're going to give to the project. And then you have a pretty good idea of where you're going to shop around, because it has to fit a theme. It has to fit a concept. Am I making any sense?
Yeah. Totally. 100%. You know, Peter's very much that way when he chooses material for his shows. He's very much about finding a song that speaks to him. And then, well, here's a question I have for you, because I'm going to bring Peter back on screen. Peter is never satisfied with the opening of his shows. And
I always want a new opening number.
So that's my question to you: is do you have the opener that's kind of your go-to, or are you constantly changing it up?
Oh God, I've been 54 years. I have like 50 million openers.
So it's not just my husband.
Well, it's the same thing as what I was saying about the album. Because look, if you're making a Christmas album, if I'm sitting across the table from you and go, DJ, what's my next album going to be? And you said, oh, Julie, you should do a Christmas CD. You know, I'm just picking something. Well, if I'm doing a Christmas CD, now the direction and the thought is going in that. I'm serving that, you know. Not to say that you can't pick a different kind of a song that isn't Christmas song and that can be a lovely feeling to put, you know, for that kind of a thing, you know, to work into that. You could do that too. But there's a direction. There's a direction there. So the reason why I have 9 million openers for 9 million different shows is because I have so many different shows that the opening is like the first page in a book.
Exactly.
It, you know, and it sets up this evening. You know, it's funny. It's I know I feel very strongly about this. When you do a show, the minute the people come in the room, it's like the show should start. Do you know what I mean? And there's a place and there's a feeling, and they know that something's going to happen.
Yeah.
There should be that sort of, you know, and I kind of like that about your show. When I came to see your show, there was a set there. And I'm glad you didn't hide the set, because when I came in, it established a place. You know, there was a place, there was a time, there was already there was like an emotional feeling before the show even started. Like you helped direct that. As soon as I walk into my show, I have music playing.
Yeah.
You know, and I have a graphic on the stage, and it's as if the show, when they walk in, really the show has started.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just not on stage yet, but they're just not walking in to a bunch of room noise and a curtain.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
Totally agree. Totally.
You talk about openers. Of course, you're going to have a lot of different openers because you have a lot of different stage experience to fill in all this time. I have a lot of theme shows. You know, I sell a lot of different theme shows to performing arts centers all over the country for years and years and years, and symphonies and so forth and so on. So the evening that you're going to set up is very different than the evening that you might have had in Vegas 2 weeks before.
Sure.
So I agree with Peter. I'm never happy with my opening.
Thank you.
There's got to be. I mean, maybe. I don't know.
It's always something new. Well, I liked it. Well, that's the great thing about doing what we do is, you know, you can, you know, shake it up, and it doesn't have to be. Doing a book show is great. I mean, if you get to do a wonderful book show and a musical, and everything is set, you know, it's da da da. But I love what I do, whether it's as Judy or as it says myself or any of the other people, because every week I'm like, nope, come on, we can. It's fresh for me, it's going to be fresh for the audience.
Great about. Absolutely, because you know what? That's why shows stay fresh.
Yeah.
They don't say, okay, it's frozen, see ya. You know, no, it's this organism. It's this living organism that changes and gets tweaked, and, you know.
Even the patter. I mean, you know, because patter is important. You have to have good patter. You don't want to bore them, certainly, but having good and saying, you know, well, no, I'm not going to tell that story. What are you going to tell tonight? I'll say to John, don't worry, it's all up here, and it will, you know, certain things we've got written down.
Things happen in society, and sometimes you bring them on stage.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, the world changes.
Yeah.
The world changes, and you have to address it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we had a performance the day after the Pulse nightclub shooting.
That's right.
And
yeah,
to not have addressed that would have been, you know, just
horrible.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. I hear you. You know, these things happen, and we're out there, you know, kind of orchestrating happiness for the rest of the world so that we can move on and have a little hope, you know.
And too, I mean, Julie, you I'm sure would agree that you can also tap into when something awful happens, like Pulse.
Yeah.
Music is such a wonderful way to say, I can sing about this. There is a song that I can pull from let the audience cry. Make them laugh, but let them cry too.
What we do is very, very important. It's like medicine in a way. I mean,
yeah.
Everybody's got, no matter what happens, everybody's got somewhere to go at 8:00, and the musicians have to be on stage, and the stage man has to be there, and the director has to be there, and you've got to be there, and it takes you out of the horribleness that's going on, and you're going to find a way to serve in a whole other way.
Yeah.
Look, I'll tell you a story that's stayed with me. I used to work a place in Los Angeles. It was like my favorite place in the world to work. It was called the Backlot Theater.
Oh.
And you remember the Backlot, and I used to work the Backlot in LA all the time. It was like, after a while, they used to call it Julie's house. And the owner was a great friend of mine. His name was Scott Forbes. And I miss Scott horribly. I mean, like you can't believe. Certain souls you'll never get over, the loss of certain souls. Scott's one of them. And I was in my dressing room. And I always show up like 2 hours before the show. And people always say to me, what? Isn't long enough? You're showing up. No, I show up 2 hours before because I want to settle in. And I know I vocalized at home, but it's going to be another 2.5, 3 hours before I get on stage, and I'm going to want to move it around again. And I want to get a sense of the place, and I don't want to come in harried and crazy and, 2 minutes before curtain, it's like, whoa, that's not the way we work here, just take it easy. Yeah. And if there are last minute notes, I want to know about it. I go back up on the stage. I see the sound man again, just check it to make sure that when I get on, there's no surprises tonight. I have my little routine that I do, right?
I'm sure.
Have my assistant will help steam out the costumes, and what else do I need on stage tonight? All the shtick. So then there comes a time, that last hour, I got to be alone. It's my way of going and doing whatever I have to do. I become Julie Budd, right? And I'm putting makeup, and I get a knock on the door, and nobody ever sees me before showtime. Nobody. It's like the place has to be burning to the ground. Maybe Herbie could see me. He's like the only one who could see me before, because maybe there's something important. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I get a knock on the door, and I figured, oh yeah. Who's what? This is my time. What do they want? I go, yes. Hello, I'm so-and-so. I hear a female voice. What? I open the door. I go, I'm in my robe, and I have my head sticking out. I go, hi, how are you? Can I help you? And she goes, yes. And I'm looking at this woman, and I remember her face. She had a round face, beautiful sparkly eyes, and her hair was very, very, very short to her head. Almost like she shaved it and it was growing out.
Okay.
And she was dressed beautifully. And she said, oh, Miss Budd, I almost didn't make it here tonight. I said, really? Why? What? And she said, I've been very ill. She said, and I knew you were coming, and I just wanted an hour where I didn't have to think of my chemo. I never in my life was so moved by a person as this woman. I swear to God, even years later now, I'm telling you the story. I felt this is important work that we do,
Yeah.
Art is serious business. Art has such a voice in the world. It does so much for people. And I just took her by the hand. I didn't know what to do for her. I said, well, I got some records here, and I got, let me sign a picture for you. And I didn't know what to do for her. You know what I mean? And I said, come back and see me again after the show. We'll spend time. She gave me a hug, and I went out, and I closed the door, and I sat there at the dressing table at the mirror for a second. I turned out the light. I just had to be quiet. She moved me so. And I thought, and this was a long time ago, but it stayed with me never to say things like, it's just another show. And, oh, I got to do another one. And why are people like that? We are so lucky to be working. There's so many people, number one, that are out of work, There's so many people that do things for a living that they hate.
Right.
We're lucky we do what we love.
We do what we love.
That we actually at it, right? But that it's transformative. The message is important to the world. And I don't know, when that woman came back, it was like everything. It was like God sent her, I swear.
Babe, do you
and it's years and years later. I swear, it's as if she's there. It's crazy.
It's a wonderful lesson for performers who do kind of have that attitude of, oh my God, do I really have to do it again tonight? But there's always someone out there who needs you.
And also, how many times does work have a message that has really helped change society?
Yeah.
And at the time, people go, oh, it's horrible, it's this and that. Then years later, you look back at the work and you go, you know what? That was important work.
Yeah.
That was really important. And just the fact that you're there, singing songs that take people out of, my mother said something to me that was so sweet. I was a kid, and I said, Ma, so-and-so was so rotten to me today. They were so unfriendly. Why can't they just say hello? I mean, why are they just so... And my mother, she was so calm, so sweet. And she said, something, sweetie? Be nice to people. You never know what they're going through.
It's true.
She was like such an angel, my mother. God. My mother... she was like a saint. And Mom, it was really rotten. And she said, you don't know what people are living through. You don't know what they're fighting. Everybody's fighting a fight. She said, be nice. My mom, the one that wouldn't, be the showbiz mom. She'd want to sit there in the wings combing my hair,
Yeah. But wise words.
You know what? You have to keep your humanity. It's really hard out there for people. It's very hard. Really hard. These times are really challenging.
And then some.
The Laurie Beachman Theater, the Birdland, so many venues. People
it's
are
heartbreaking.
funding to keep the... Yeah.
Do we freeze?
Julie?
What? Hang on, wait a minute. I think we froze.
That's we're not frozen.
We're not frozen. Okay.
No.
We're gonna get Julie back. Sorry, guys. It happens.
Just give us 1 second. Let's see if we can't get Julie back.
Well, I'm still reeling over that last story.
Do you remember the time that we had that lovely young woman who came to see the show, and she had the dyed hair? It was in
Boston.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's similar to the story that Julie just told us. We were doing Golden Girls Live. Do we have Julie back? I heard a bing, but I don't know if we got her back yet.
Hey, Julie, can you hear us?
There was, she was a young girl. I think she was only 32 years old. And she was battling cancer. And her mom said to me, and it was a lousy day for us, too. I remember that. It was not a particularly good day. Talk about, we just didn't, I know I didn't want to be at and her mom said, when we were taking photos at the end, she said, this made her year. And she said, I said, it was so wonderful that she could be here. And she said, she's not supposed to be here. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, she was supposed to have died 2 months ago. That's how bad her cancer was. And
I'm sorry.
We have you back.
Yes, I'm sorry.
It happens. You can never depend on the internet.
And all of a sudden, you know what I think? Spirits are around us.
I think so. Good spirits. Friendly spirits.
But you were saying about your mom?
Oh, my mom, but it was a similar situation. We had
And mom loved Julie.
Yes, my mom.
Loved you so much.
My mom adored you. Absolutely adored you.
Loved your mom.
Good.
I met your mom at the Metropolitan Room.
That's right. She was the cream of the crop.
She sure was.
Everybody loved Mom. The story you told about the lady at the dressing room, we had a similar situation in Boston, and the girl was, I believe, 32 years old. And we went to take pictures at the end, and her mother said, oh, you made her year. And I said, I'm so glad we could do that, to make her so happy. And she said, she really shouldn't be here. And I said, oh, I said, why? And she said, no, she was supposed to have died 2 months ago.
Oh, my God.
Bad cancer. And she had a pink, neckerchief on her head. And she was a kindergarten teacher. Yeah. And her mom said she was not going to miss this.
She checked herself out of the hospital that morning.
So they came. They were supposed to come for her birthday. And, again, goosebump time thinking about it. And then I believe she passed away 3 or 4 months later. And she taught up until 2 days before she passed away. That's how passionate she was about her kids. But again...
They leave you with something, all these people. They leave you, they don't really leave because once they connect with us, they're always here.
Yeah. And the fact that we as performers can do that for them is just, it really is a gift.
There's a reason why they ask people to go into hospitals and, bring a guitar and play for people. And there's a reason why they ask people to read poetry by people's bedside.
Exactly.
And there's a reason for that. I think the one thing that COVID taught us was how important the arts are.
Yeah.
Look at what our society is like without art. It's like it's dead. Without art, it's dead. There's no heartbeat to a society, whether it's film or television or a written word or paintings or live stage work. The society has no heartbeat, no voice without.
We need it. It's nourishment. It really is nourishment. The arts are nourishment.
It's the voice of the people. It's the voice of the people.
Yeah.
Art is definitely the voice of the people.
I want to thank you so much for doing this for us.
Forgive me for the blackout.
Oh, it's that's all part of live theater, right? You never know what's gonna happen. So it's just like doing a show.
I'm going around worrying because there isn't a 7-year-old telling me what to do.
Now I want to know where we can send. Your website is juliebud.com.
Yeah, but most people connect with me on Facebook.
On Facebook, okay.
Yeah.
So Julie Bud on Facebook.
Yeah.
And the website is there as well.
Oh, sure.
So the website is there as well. And I know we can't wait to get you back on stage.
You too, sweetie.
Yeah. Maybe one day I can sing a duet with you. That would make
fun.
I would love I would love that.
Well, you could be the Judy I never knew.
Hey, why not? We'll do the Get Happy Days.
Hey, that's the name of the show, The Judy I Never Knew.
The Judy I Never Knew. It writes itself.
That's That's what I mean. When you have the theme, you know where to go for the material. Jill, that's the answer.
That's it. Goes right from there. But blessings for the new year to you.
Thank you, you too.
We actually have one last question.
Oh, we got one more question. I'm sorry. One more question.
So this is a new fan of ours. He stumbled upon the show. He's a giant fan of Julie's.
Okay.
And he wanted to know, Julie, how is Herb doing?
Herbie's great. Herbie had a heart attack in November.
He did.
And yeah, and I was, first of all, men are impossible because they don't go to doctors. What is it with men? A woman gets a pimple, she's like to the specialist. You know? Men walk around, it's nothing. He was having a heart attack, and he was walking around for a week having a heart attack. And finally, I called him. You know, you get a sense about people sometime. I didn't sleep well that night. I knew something was off. He wasn't like himself. And I called him the next morning, like really early, and I said, Herbie, how are you? He goes, I'm sick as a dog. I said, if you don't call 911, I said, Herbie. And then I called his daughter. We all met him there. We got him to the hospital, all that stuff. He had a stent put in, and he's doing fantastically well. Wonderful. And I was really scared because I didn't know how this was going to affect him going forward.
Sure.
You know, and the man is unbelievable. He's unbelievable. He's like a little tank. You know?
Oh, God bless him. We'll keep him in our.
I'm going to tell him.
Good thoughts and good prayers, and
so much. He really is doing well.
And check Julie out on YouTube, because there are amazing clips. The clips of, like I said, New York gives me goosebumps, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a million ways to just, if you've never, and obviously if you're here tonight, you know, you have discovered Julie Budd, but you know, go out there and reach out to her on Facebook and all kinds of wonderful things. And we just ask, please like Mac and Chat on Facebook. It does mean a lot. Follow us. And if you could please subscribe to Mac and Chat on YouTube. That's our channel. That's where our previous shows, every show gets archived there. We have 2 wonderful shows coming up this week, Wednesday night at 8 o'clock and Sunday night at 7 o'clock. So stay tuned for the announcement of our guests. We've got some wonderful guests lined up for 2021. And then I'll be doing my virtual Judy Garland shows. The next ones we're doing is Judy Garland and Company. So it's not just Judy. She has her gal pals, as we call them. So Betty Davis, Katharine Hepburn, Elaine Stritch, Liza, they all drop by to 2 or 3 of them for every show, drop by to guest star and sing their little hearts out or tell funny stories or what have you. So that's Judy Garland and Company. It opens virtually on January 16th, Saturday, January 16th. So check that out as well. Peter Mack is Judy Garland on Facebook. Again, my very special thanks to you, Julie. We love you so much, and we look forward to doing this again. Let's do it in person the next time, once this whole pandemic is over.
That's what I'm looking forward to, sweetie. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you.
I love you guys. You're just the best.
Love you, Julie. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you.